We're taking stock here on Budget 2019. The budget is a bit like going into a brightly lit changing room at your local clothing retailer. One of those harsh ones with the overhead lighting. And you stand there in all your natural glory, and when you look at the mirrors that surround you, suddenly you see what you look like from behind. And the truth is, South Africa's bottom line isn't particularly attractive either. Oh, wow. That was quite a good line, wasn't it?
That was very good.
Thank you.
Done.
It's all my best work. As I save it for you. But that bottom line is so unattractive. Yeah. Our rear view is, let me not get into the detail of it. It's bad. Do we go for a March downgrade? Does Moody's give us another break?
I think they'll give us another break. I think it is inevitable. I agree with it. I don't see us really curtailing it to a certain extent. They seem to have bought into the idea that we are introducing the right incremental changes to move this very large super oil tanker very slowly. They seem to have bought into that because they have even on a stable outlook. But I think, well, from our perspective, considering what we've seen in markets and heard from investors, both foreign and domestic, is that it doesn't really matter if they downgrade us as well, except, of course, if you get a local currency downgrade, but we're not expecting that at all. So even on the foreign side, I think markets have already started to anticipate something like this because we've started to prepare them.
We're one notch, we're two notches above junk status, sub-investment grade. And we got a little mini upgrade during Ramaphoria, and we went from negative outlook to neutral outlook. Now, probably March will be put back to negative.
Yes, I'd agree.
With a warning that... it's a bit like a father, Keith Engel. I mean, you understand this. You've got young children. You say to your children, don't light that match. I'm telling you once, don't light that. Okay, don't make me count to 3 on this. And Moody's is a bit like a parent trying to get their kid not to harm themselves, yet the kid is determined to harm itself. And they've been warning us for the last 2 years. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And we've kept sort of kicking the can down the road.
Well, I think, to be fair, I mean, I think when Zuma was in charge, there was those warnings. And one thing you never do with children is warn them what you're going to do. You either do it or you don't. But that's a separate issue about parenthood. But the point is...
Thank you for the tip, by the way.
I'm sure you already know that.
I've been doing something wrong for a long time.
So, but the point is here, when you're looking at it, I think the bottom line is they're backing Ramaphosa. He's the good boy. We're trying to help him. And the bottom line is governance is getting better, and they're getting stock on the democracy.
But the numbers are getting worse. Every single measurable metric is deteriorating in an environment where we have promised that we will bring in debt to GDP, we will reduce debt to GDP. Today, on Thursday, Tito Mboweni at the Parliamentary Finance Committee was saying, yes, 60% debt to GDP, which is what we'll hit in 2020, has to go back to 40. He's saying the right things, but he's not saying how he's going to do it. The National Treasury routinely overestimates growth and underestimates growth, or overestimates growth and doesn't get the numbers right when it comes to collections either from a SARS perspective. So our numbers are all haywire. We can't trust the numbers.
We're also missing the growth. Remember, about a year ago, they said we must have the growth. I think they're giving him a kindness. He's the favorite boy. And we know they have to get past the election.
That's an emotional response.
It is.
The cold, analytical numbers response is, we should be downgraded. I'm very grateful that Moody's are nice people.
That's right, you should be. Well, you don't get a beating with a stick. It's nice.
I just think that there's one number that is changing, and that's the rate that we're attacking corruption. And if you go to all these big... when they're at Davos, when he's speaking at the World Economic Forum, that's the question that gets that's what they ask.
But Tebogo, you know that if you've got a friend who keeps making big promises about I'll see you on Saturday and they never pitch on Saturday, and they say I'll see you next Saturday and they never pitch on Saturday, you stop believing that they're going to pitch on Saturday. And South Africa feels like that.
Absolutely. I think they are trying to put out a good word out there to say, listen, invest in us, believe in us, we are going to come out of this. But in all honesty, the numbers are not reflecting that. We can have a massive hoo-ha about how we're going to do things, and we make these big promises, but give us on a scale below, give us step by step how you're going to go about achieving that. You've given it to us on a higher scale, on a higher level to say, oh yeah, it sounds all well and good, but how are you actually going to go about ensuring that this country is going to be in a positive light going forward? That is what we're missing.
What does Cyril Ramaphosa, Tito Mboweni, what does government need to do to provide the people that you help build businesses, encourage them to build bigger businesses, and people who are running businesses with turnovers of 100 million rand a year, who are employing 100, 1,000 people, to keep doing so in an environment where so many South African companies would rather be going off to Australia, burning their fingers like Woolworths has, or going to the UK and doing a famous brands, or a Brait, or a Steinhoff, all of these companies that are losing hundreds of millions of rand offshore because they don't want to risk investing in this environment, because people are scared to invest here. What does government need to do to encourage more of your members to invest more in this country?
Especially looking at small, medium businesses, small enterprises. They need funding. A lot of these businesses, they do need funding. They need things like tax breaks. They are not being given enough space to play around and to start exploring those kind of options without detrimenting themselves in the process. As a result, they become discouraged. Why should I continue when I'm not getting supported? The small business enterprises is more like you need to be handheld. You read, especially when you're starting up, and this is where government is not putting a foot forward. They need to be hand-holding these entrepreneurs, helping them grow and build. That's what we're not getting, and that's a big cry. I've noticed that they have invested in the South African in the small Enterprise Development Agency. They've invested some money into that, but it's not enough. It's not going to be growing the economy and entrepreneurs to get them to a positive light in terms of growing and starting businesses.
And it's quite hypocritical, Francois, because what we're doing is we're sending our investment ambassadors out of the country. We're saying Jack and Marie and Trevor Manuel and the others, and we're saying to them, go and tell foreigners to bring $100 billion over 5 years and invest it here, when South African large companies are tentative and apprehensive about doing so.
Yeah, very much so. And it's not just here. It's actually a global phenomenon. But it seems it's easier to attract someone with money and have them do the jobs that we should be doing than to just do the jobs ourselves. Because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing masses of unproductiveness. Just something interesting specifically on the government side that we looked at was on the wage bill and government's ability to produce certain goods and services. We're the third most unproductive civil service in the world. Just after Russia.
What is the government wage bill as a percentage of expenditure? Expenditure this year will be 1.8 billion rand. What is the wage bill?
35%.
It's over 600 billion rand we spend on public sector wages. Now, important people like police and nurses and doctors.
Absolutely.
But then we also have bureaucrats and other people who don't do it.
But you're saying that we're spending it on healthcare and education, but that's the problem. We have the worst education and healthcare in the world.
Outcomes, yes.
Outcomes in the world. So we're spending all this money, and that's once again the unproductive side of things, but we're not seeing the results of spending all that money.
Okay, let's stop whinging, because we can get into a whinge, and that's nice and easy. Yes, Keith, last point.
The point is that the problem the government needs to make a paradigm shift. And that's what you see. That you see Gordon, he's trying really, really hard. But at the end of the day, he's trying to just reform the system. Just put a few Band-Aids, let's change whoever the boards are. The problem is the system itself is not very conducive. They really just believe in government. They believe that the private sector is to be captured and controlled and adjusted. There's no trust. When you come to a country as a foreign investor, and this is the complaint for the multinationals, is you don't have a friendliness. The door is not open. It's very much the money is we want your money, but we don't trust you. And this whole barrier between the private sector and government remains very strong throughout the government, despite Cyril's license.
I would agree with you on that point. However, in the press conference which precedes the budget speech, it happens in a locked-up environment just before the budget speech, Tito Mboweni was the most outspoken of any government minister of the last 25 years in terms of his commitment to say, I've worked in the private sector. When I was chairman of Discovery, we did it this way. When I was at Anglo Gold Ashanti, we did it this way. And was very clear that he wants to see a break away from ideology. And if things are not working, try and fix them. If you can't fix them, get rid of them. That doesn't go down well within the ANC. Stony faces on the ANC benches yesterday. Stay with us as we take stock of Budget 2019.